thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for
Nice to meet
having
you.
me. Nice to meet you too, even though I've met you.
Yeah, but we haven't talked that much.
No, we haven't. I think I was at your house and I've made, what did I make?
I
I
don't
brought over
remember.
some baked goods that I made. Oh, I made eclairs.
Oh yeah.
I'm really good at baking, and I know you like baking too. And
Uh-huh.
I brought over some eclairs to your house.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
yeah,
That was
they were
fun.
super delicious. I don't think they were gluten free, but they
That's
were delicious.
okay. But yeah, so to start kind of just can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like
Sure.
your name, who you kind of are, your connection to ADHD or whatever?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Leigh Ann, and I am the director of communications and development at Valley Youth Theater, which is a theater here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's an amazing theater program for kids. We've had quite a few stars come out of here. Emma Stone was a Valley Youth Theater kid, and Kamiko Glenn was a Valley Youth Theater kid, and I was a Valley Youth Theater kid when I was 16. I grew up here in Phoenix, so I went to high school with, of all people, your mom,
Yeah.
at a place called Xavier College Preparatory, which is a pretty rigorous kind of school.
Hmm.
I left when I graduated there. I went to 2 years at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. I
Hmm.
learned that Nebraska is gorgeous and very cold in the winter, and it has tornadoes. And so I came
Ooh.
back and I finished up at ASU.
Hmm.
Um, and at ASU, that's when I was diagnosed with ADD,
Hmm.
um, which is something that I clearly have had all my life, but I wasn't diagnosed until college, which is kind of interesting. So,
Yeah, I would
um,
agree.
yeah, well, because, if you take a look, I mean, obviously, once you're diagnosed, you can look back, right? You can
Yeah.
go back and you can be like, oh, yeah, my fifth grade teacher consistently wrote, like, will not stay in your seat, right? And it's like, why weren't you going to stay in your seat? I do remember in fifth grade, like going and sharpening my pencil was like my favorite thing to do. Like I would sharpen my pencil 28,000 times
Hmm.
because, like, why would I stay in my seat? That's the
Yeah.
stupidest thing in the entire world. So it wasn't until a professor at ASU was like, I think you have an issue with the way that you learn, and I think that you need to look at that. Like, has anyone said anything to you about it? And no one had said anything to me. I mean, I
Hmm.
graduated from Xavier, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
So it's not like I couldn't do anything.
Hmm.
Um, and then I went to Creighton. But until the professor was like, you might have some issues with this. Why don't you go take a look at it? I
Hmm.
really kind of wasn't thinking about it because not to date myself, but I'm
Hmm.
47 this year. And ADD and ADHD was a thing that boys had.
Yeah.
And boys were loud and screamed. Kids,
Hmm.
boys with ADHD screamed. They ran
Hmm.
around the room and yelled. They had to take a break and run around the school. And they were disruptive
Hmm.
and would throw things. And that wasn't me.
Hmm.
I would talk a heck of a lot, you know. I was clearly getting up all the time and sharpening my pencil. I wouldn't turn in papers. I would do the work, I just wouldn't turn it in. If I didn't like the teacher, there's no way I would do any of the work they asked me to
Hmm.
do. And I was avoidant. Things that I didn't want to do, I was avoidant, but I
Hmm.
also had hyper focus. So if I really
Yep.
wanted to do something, I would just, um, so at that time, that's like a quirky girl,
Uh-huh.
right? Boys
Yeah.
got the attention, boys got a diagnosis. Girls were just like really quirky
Uh-huh.
and kind of, you know, they were still like hanging in there,
Hmm.
surviving, so they
Yeah.
really weren't paying attention. And it wasn't until that professor, when I was at ASU, that was like, hey, I think you really need to take a look at this. Um, was, you know, I brought it up, and then
Hmm.
I went and got tested.
Hmm.
Did you ever take a test? you ever like get tested for it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was
So,
diagnosed when I was like 10. They had us fill out like a survey, and then I sat in a room and like hit a button on a computer, and someone watched me.
okay, the hitting the button on the computer thing, I lost my mind. I remember it so well. So they stopped it halfway through and they were like, Leigh Ann, you have to hit the button when you see the dot. And I'm like, I'm hitting the button when I see the dot. And they're like, you're actually hitting the button before the dot is on the screen. So you're not. And I was like, okay, well, I just kind of figured the dot was going to come up. So whose fault is that? Not mine. Not my fault.
Yeah.
You guys made your test predictable.
It was
Um,
weird because
it was
like the person was just sitting behind me watching me when I was doing it, and I was like, what? And I did move around a lot during that, so that's probably part of it.
yeah, I was like, I just got bored. And so I guess I was just trying to just predict when the dot would come up on the screen. And they didn't like that very much.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember there was this one thing where they would give you a string of numbers, and it was like 2, 5, 7,
Mm-hmm.
1, and you were supposed to add them up. And I just sat there and I stared at them and I was like, I'm not gonna do this. Like I I'm not gonna do this. Like I can't, like I couldn't do it. Like there's just no way I could do it. And so I don't like to admit that I can't do anything. So I remember being in that test being like, nope, not gonna do it. They're like, what's your answer? And I was like, I don't have an answer. I like stopped listening at like the second number. What do you
Mm-hmm.
want? Like, so clearly at that point they were like, yeah, no, I think that I think you probably have ADD.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at that time, like ADD and ADHD were two different things. I honestly don't know what it's like now because I haven't
Uh-huh.
done any other research. Is it the same thing now, or
They
do they?
they all go under the name ADHD. There's like
Okay,
subtypes and stuff, but like it's all
yeah,
under that name.
interesting.
But yeah,
Well, they
I remember.
decided, yeah, they decided I had that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember for us, like the only reason I was diagnosed is obviously because when my brother they were filling out the survey, they were like, a lot of these symptoms actually apply to Cate. Maybe we should look into that. So we did look into it.
Interesting.
But like
Yeah,
the survey at the beginning was just really long because they were just kind of scanning for all sorts of stuff. So
yeah. I think it's really funny that like the obviously the test for what it
mm-hmm.
was is supposed to drive you insane. But like I just remember being like that was probably the worst like 2 hours or whatever I've ever had. It was so frustrating and so boring. And you know, and at that point, I was in college. So at that point I wasn't 10,
Yeah.
right? I had lived my entire life knowing what I can and can't do,
Uh-huh.
and knowing what my limitations are. Like I
Yeah.
don't tell anybody this, but I don't think I read a book when I was his age. Like I don't think I read a book at all. I
Mm-hmm.
participated in all of the class
Mm-hmm.
discussions, but I don't think I read a book because I literally couldn't get past it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but what I did learn, because standardized tests, you have to like read a passage and
Uh-huh.
answer questions. So what I did learn is how to scan information.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the questions and I looked at the text and I found the same words and I read the words around it. And so then I could get the correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
So because I was diagnosed so late, I had found ways to go through Xavier,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to do 2 perfectly fine years at Creighton, except it was cold, to finish my degree at ASU,
Mm-hmm.
to work,
Yeah.
you know, because I had built up all of these tricks and stuff that I
Uh-huh.
use in order to keep myself interested or or answer questions correctly.
Yeah.
So and I think that that's super important for young kids.
Mm-hmm.
They, especially women, where it's often ignored,
Yeah.
truthfully, because they're not the ones throwing stuff. So you're not going to pay attention to those kids, the kids that aren't throwing stuff,
Yeah.
because they're doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I had all those tricks and stuff that I did,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I got through school.
Yeah, I know that it's a lot harder, I feel like, to get diagnosed as a girl because, like, even for me, I wasn't really causing that many problems. Like, yeah, there were a few things, but for the most part, that wasn't really the issue. So the only reason I was diagnosed is because Patrick was.
Right.
But do you remember when you first heard about ADHD just in general, or was it just kind of mentioned every once in a while?
I mean, I think I really heard about it in fifth grade. So now I'm talking fifth grade, and so that's 1986, maybe
Okay.
87. And I think it was just like mentioned that it's like boys who run
Mm-hmm.
around and scream. Which, like, I have a 6-year-old son who does not
Yeah.
have AD, and he runs around and screams because
Yeah.
he's 6, right? Like, he's a 6-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was the first time, and it was not a thing that girls,
Yeah.
not at all. Um, and I didn't even really think about it much until, much later on
Yeah.
when my college professor was like, I think you need to look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I didn't, I remember hearing about it when I was in fifth grade, but then after that, it was just a boy thing that boys have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
And then, what were some major changes following your diagnosis? Or were there any major changes? Because it was kind of later in your life, but I'm sure
sure.
some things changed.
Well, something's changed. I mean, the first thing is like I ended up getting extra time to take tests, which
Mm-hmm.
was pretty great because
Mm-hmm.
I really like that a lot because if the time constraint isn't there anymore, then I do really well on tests. But once you
Mm-hmm.
tell me there's a time constraint, I like panic. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. Even those like cell phone games where it's like you have to match everything and it has to
Uh-huh.
be in a time. I lose my mind at that because I just like don't time me. I just kind of want to like do it on my own.
Uh-huh.
But like once that happened, um I was okay. Like I was able to kind of use that, I don't know, to my advantage, but use it
Uh-huh.
to help me finish up college. Um, but again, a lot of the stuff I've been doing for so long
Yeah.
that it was just kind of second nature to me. So
Yeah.
not a lot changed. I was like, oh, okay, so that's what that is.
Uh-huh.
And I think even then though, that was a long time ago. I think we've still learned
Yeah.
so much more about it. And I think we're still learning, especially with women, I think we're still learning a lot more about it. Um, some of the traits that women with ADHD have that,
Mm-hmm.
even when I was diagnosed, they wouldn't have thought that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's still a lot of learning. I feel like they're looking more into some of the emotional stuff now, as opposed to just hyperactivity and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, do you have any specific stories that you think really shows what it's like to live with ADHD?
Oh my God. I mean, like my life is like
Okay.
my life is like that. It's funny because this is my current to-do list.
Uh-huh.
This is my previous to-do list. And then you just keep on going. Like that's really the only way to get stuff done is writing
Yeah.
stuff down and making lists. Because if I don't, it doesn't happen. I
Yeah.
will I will only focus on the things that I want to do.
Uh-huh.
And I will ignore everything. Um, but gosh, any specific stories. I don't know. I have to think about that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm. It's funny because if you look back, the pencil sharpening thing
Uh-huh.
in fifth grade, or like, I mean, I don't know if you, but I really, honestly, all the time, God, like, does not live up to her potential. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as if
Yeah.
that was like wielded like a sword with me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like every single teacher just wanted to
Yeah.
write that on my report card. They felt the
Mm-hmm.
need to like let me know that I wasn't living up to my potential.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks, actually. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I think if anything, when you're taking a look at like just like being a person in the world,
Mm-hmm.
living with what you're given, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
ADD or whatever,
Yeah.
ADHD or whatever, you kind of have to go through it with a little bit of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think like growing up and being older
Mm-hmm.
and living with ADD, ADHD, you have to take a look at those people who have been in your life who've said really terrible things to you, like
Mm-hmm.
doesn't live up to your potential. Like that's a really terrible thing to say to a kid, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Or like you can't get your act together or your
Mm-hmm.
FHIT together. Like I've my entire life, like I've had someone like literally throw something at me and be like, get your stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, my stuff is together. This is together. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is about as together as we get.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is my version of together.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you're talking about it, I think you need to talk about forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
forgiving the people in your life that have maybe they thought they were helping, but they really weren't helping.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People who, you know, I mean, people who have been abusive in the past, telling you to get your act together or your act
Mm-hmm.
together or stuff like that. That's a really abusive thing to say to someone.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you wouldn't tell someone with, you know, with another ability, like just walk on both of your legs. Like just, oh my God, just do it. Right.
Yeah.
So why are you telling me to get my act together? Get my act together what? This is together, you know, or living up to or doesn't you don't live up to your potential. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your help and your
Mm-hmm.
assistance. You know, I've been pretty successful and I've
Yeah.
done everything that I've wanted to do. I'm not unhappy with any of the jobs
Mm-hmm.
I've had. I've been able to keep the jobs I've had.
Mm-hmm.
Not many women with ADHD haven't been able to,
Mm-hmm.
or they get bored.
Yeah.
But you know, I've been really lucky in that sense. And I've also had to, you know, take a lot of what's been said to me as and let it go and forgive.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
have you experienced any of that?
I mean, kind of. My third grade teacher actually got really mad at me for moving around and not being able to sit still. And it was
Yeah.
kind of like interesting. And I was always labeled as kind of quirky and stuff. But part of the issue and the reason it did take longer for my diagnosis is because I was gifted as a child. And so that kind of, they always put it on that, even when it was something else.
Yeah. I was in the gifted program too
Mm-hmm.
at Scottsdale Unified School District, and I got to tell you that was the best thing that ever happened to me because the gifted program at that time
Mm-hmm.
at Scottsdale Unified School District, it was like this independent study program where you
Mm-hmm.
could choose what you wanted to learn about, and you got to do a huge presentation on it, and you got to like, I remember my dad was in China for a month working, and so I did this big thing about China, and I learned all about China, and I brought in some food,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, learned how to. I taught everybody how to use chopsticks in
Mm-hmm.
this like little group, and it made me like realize now like what a gift that was to be in the
Uh-huh.
gifted program because that literally saved me
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to do different things.
Yeah.
It wasn't sitting in a desk.
Yeah.
Like my kids right now go to a school that's a Montessori school,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember when my kids were in kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
they had to do like circle things that are in a schoolroom,
Mm-hmm.
and like a desk, a chalkboard, all these things. And like my kids, my daughter didn't circle desk, and I was like, oh no, this is. She's like, I don't know what that is, Mom. I'm sorry, I have no idea. And if I can like the fact that like she didn't have to sit in a desk and she could get up and move around. If I had something like that
Mm-hmm.
available to me, then I could get up and move around and
Mm-hmm.
um, go and explore what I wanted to explore over here and go explore what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
explore over there. I think
Yeah.
my school would have been much more successful. But
Yeah.
that's what I really liked about the gifted program is I could go
Yeah.
around and I could do all this cool stuff.
I was not in the gifted program because I stayed at the school where I was. I just moved ahead in math in the end.
Mm,
But like, I understand that. Like, the teachers who didn't care if I moved around, I feel like it was the easiest. The classrooms where I could just move around. So I try to tell my teachers now that, hey, I might move around or stand up. I need to do this.
right.
And usually that actually works better for me.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally see that. And it's like, because, I can be talking to someone
Yeah.
and doing something else at the same time. I can be learning math and standing up at the same time. I can go
Mm-hmm.
sharpen my pencil. Like, it's fine. Who cares if I go sharpen my pencil? Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you like you're personally offended for pencils everywhere that I like sharpen it too much? Like, why
Mm-hmm.
would you care? Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason to care. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I get if you have like 30 kids in your class and everyone's getting up to sharpen their pencil all the time, but like, why do you care if a kid needs to stand up, if they need to walk around?
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things that they do in the school that my kids are in, like they were teaching math, and so the teacher was like, Josie, go count all the kids in each of the classes, write it down on a piece of paper, and then
Mm-hmm.
add them all up. And so she like would go to each one of the classrooms and like count all the kids in the class and write it down on her little baby paper and then add it up all in her little, in her little
Mm-hmm.
handwriting. But it's stuff like that that like acknowledging that people learn in different ways
Uh-huh.
and that people, and it's okay, like whatever way you want to learn. If you want to sit in a desk all day and write down everything you want to, if that's how some people learn.
Mm-hmm.
Not how I learn.
Mm-hmm.
And to have me sit in a desk and learn like that is it's torture to me, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So
Yeah.
it's a, I mean, I'm in an office right now,
Yeah.
but but I've always found jobs that I don't do one thing every day. Like
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't do a data entry position.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I can't, but just like it's just not something I could do. It's for
Mm-hmm.
other people. Other people are amazing at it. I have to do 28,000 different things. My desk is here, I'll show you. It's a mess. But
Mm-hmm.
but I know where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
it's just finding ways that you work the best.
Yeah.
And I think I've found that.
Yeah. I was just about to ask about something similar, which is how has ADHD been able to help you in your career or in your school? Like, how have you used it to help you?
Yeah. I mean, I think if anything, I've totally used it to help me more than
Mm-hmm.
anything else. It has my I have relied on a lot of my creativity
Mm-hmm.
um, because I give myself the opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to like I give myself the leeway to use what can be seen as as a detriment. I give
Mm-hmm.
myself that leeway to use it for good.
Mm-hmm.
So I will walk around if I'm thinking about something, um, or I'll take a second. If I'm working on something and I really need to think about it, I'll just take a second. I'll
Mm-hmm.
take a break
Mm-hmm.
because like it's not going to help me to just sit here and hash something out, right?
Yeah.
I'll go walk around. I'll go do something else. I'll
Mm-hmm.
doodle. I'll try to figure it out that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've come up with really good ideas when I'm asleep or going to sleep. So that's okay too, you know. One of the one of the bad things about the like 24 hours you're on the clock for working,
Mm-hmm.
um one of the bad things is that like you're always on the clock, right? But one of the
Uh-huh.
good things is like, you know, I don't do my best stuff between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, some really great ideas can come at 10:30 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll sit down and I'll be like, okay, I'll hash this out right now because I just thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's different with a family, a little bit harder with a family,
Mm-hmm.
admittedly. Um, but but it's but again, it's just the way that I've worked my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that really helps me out.
Yeah. And then do you tell people that you have ADHD or why not?
I don't advertise it. If someone's
Yeah.
curious, I'll tell them. Um, I don't think that, I don't know. I feel like everyone has their own stuff,
Uh-huh.
you know? Everyone has their own thing
Mm-hmm.
now, you know, whether it's, you know, depression or you know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I feel like people have their own stuff and
Mm-hmm.
people don't, I don't know. If someone wants to talk about it, like you wanted to talk about it, I wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm friends with your mom, so I'm like, yeah, I'll totally talk about it. I'm not
Yeah.
quiet about it, but I don't advertise it.
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters one way or another.
Uh-huh.
I also think like I do keep it a little quiet. Like I don't want something like if I'm interviewing for a job, I don't want that to be
Yeah.
the first thing that they hear about me.
Yep.
But I, I don't think it really matters anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I I'm not an addict.
Yeah.
You know, like there's other things I could be. I could be really terrible, and
Uh-huh.
I'm not. I'm just like think differently, and
Uh-huh.
you know, and I've had to find different ways uh to live and
Mm-hmm.
in a positive way.
Yeah.
But you know, it's been a little bit hard,
Mm-hmm.
but once you figure it out, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Once you figure out how to get through
Yeah.
Xavier without reading, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah. I just asked that because I know some people prefer not to tell people because like they're faced with stereotypes or they may lose opportunities, and other people don't care that much about telling someone if it comes up. They won't like tell people automatically for the most part, but
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's one of those things too that I'm like I said, I'm 47,
Mm-hmm.
so I have nothing to prove to anyone,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if I was starting out in a job or if I was younger, I might keep it under wraps. I might tell
Mm-hmm.
some friends, but I clearly I wouldn't put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm also kind of like I'm not overly a private person, but I am kind of a private person. Like
Uh-huh.
I don't shout a lot of stuff from the rooftops.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, my social media is very superficial. So I don't I'm not out there with a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But, you know, I also know that like I've lived this long and I have this experience and if I can help someone else be like, "Oh, I didn't think of that. All right, cool. Whatever."
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, then more power to them. So if somebody brings it up, absolutely I'll
Yeah.
talk to them about it. I'm not but I'm not like advertising it.
Uh-huh.
I just think it's interesting because, you know, I will like look at a lot of there's a lot of like good, what is that one? I can't, like cartoons that I really love the book. What's that book? It's like a woman with ADD, ADHD.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my God. I'll think of it and I'll tell you.
Okay.
But like I've been reading like as I've been reading more about it and
Mm-hmm.
you know, having ADD and different ways to
Mm-hmm.
cope because I think sometimes you also feel like you sometimes you feel like you're like, oh, I'm the only person in the world that does this.
Uh-huh.
So stupid. This is so dumb. I'm the only one who, like, why am
Yeah.
I so avoidant? Like, if you get down on yourself, like, why am I,
Mm-hmm.
why am I not doing this? I know I should
Yeah.
do this. Why?
Yeah.
Um, you're
I
not the
would
only one.
I
Like,
would agree with that because for me at least, the whole reason this kind of happened is because I saw on social media people like talking about ADHD in a video and I was like, huh, that actually relates to it. Because before that, I never really looked into any of it.
I think that's the thing too, is like, I didn't know a lot of the stuff was
Mm-hmm.
ADHD related until I was like, oh my God, that too? Oh, you're just like, oh, wait, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to look at this. I'm trying to find what video did you watch? You said you watched a video to find out.
Yeah, there's this one person. I saw it on Instagram, but he does like TikTok videos. It's like Connor DeWolf, and he talks about ADHD stuff. So,
I know him.
yeah.
It's so true, too. I gotta find this. Wait, I gotta find this. Oh my God, it's so funny. It's the one that's like all the cats, pet all the cats. No,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I sound insane, by the way. I'm like pet all the cats. Yeah, no, I don't think, I actually don't think that I started or really, really like learning about it or thinking about it until pretty recently. Maybe
Uh-huh.
even until after I had kids. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think I was worried that I was gonna like pass something down to my kids, Like I was kind of worried about
Mm-hmm.
that. Like I didn't want them to have to go through the ridiculousness of
Uh-huh.
school for me. Because I
Mm-hmm.
really didn't like school. I didn't like it at all. And
Yeah.
I didn't want the same thing for them.
Yeah.
Um,
ADHD kind of is genetic. Like they haven't actually looked all the way into it, but I know that it kind of is. So it makes sense that Patrick and I have it, my uncle has it, my cousins have it. Like
oh, that makes
there's
sense.
multiple people.
Yeah. I just didn't like I didn't want Josie or Bob to have to deal with
Uh-huh.
everything I dealt with,
Yeah, makes sense.
because like I said earlier, people like really aren't kind to people with ADHD, especially women.
Mm-hmm.
Like boys with ADHD, everyone's like, "Wow, they're just boys." Blah, 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 blah. But like women with ADHD, it's like
Uh-huh.
you should have your act together. You should know
Yeah.
what you're doing. You should work up to your potential.
Yeah.
Like
And
people
some
aren't really
people
kind.
also kind of get mad about medication. And I'm like, it doesn't, it just helps, but it doesn't like change that much. And I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
like,
Yeah, and people always find it's weird too. Like I'll be like I can drink coffee at any time,
yeah,
and it has not much. Like I can drink coffee at night and I can still go to sleep.
yeah,
And I'm like, what? And I'm like, what do you think ADHD medication is? It's literally like
uh-huh,
a stimulant. It's like a negative and a negative equal a positive, right? So it's
yeah,
like a stimulant, and it's perfectly fine. It just,
yeah. Coffee like calms me down more than makes me hyper. Like it'll help
yeah,
me kind of focus a little bit, but it doesn't make me like more awake.
no, 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 not at all. That's why people are always surprised when I'm like, oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
I remember in college, I would go out, you know, and get pancakes and coffee at like midnight, 2 a.m. They're like, how can you do that? And I'm like, doesn't do anything to me, friends. If anything, it makes me like actually want to listen to what you're saying.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, people always find that's weird. Yeah, I mean, I think the medicine thing is strange. There's a lot of different medicines,
Yeah.
and I don't really know. I don't know a lot about them at all.
Yeah.
I know what has worked. I'm a big fan of Adderall. I think it works pretty well
That's what
for
I
me.
take right now.
Yeah, I think it works pretty well for me. I think it's
Yeah.
weird that they call it like amphetamine salt. Like that's
I
the
don't know what they
generic.
call it.
Yeah, that's the generic is like amphetamine salt. Like
Yeah.
like
I took Concerta originally and that worked fine. It's just some of the side effects were kind of annoying. So, because I get the eating problems during like lunchtime. sometimes when I take it, where I don't want to eat food during lunchtime. So,
Oh yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know anything about any of that.
mhm.
I think that's probably again like because I was diagnosed late,
Yeah.
you know, that it was like, well,
Mhm.
you can do what you want to do. I mean, I think, I think too, I think people are a little bit more forgiving when you're younger
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
a little less forgiving when you're older.
Yeah.
Um, what about you? Like, are you worried about college or?
I mean, a little bit. I feel like it's just going to be harder when I'm older because there's still kind of the misconception that it goes away when you're an adult sometimes. And I'm like, it
Yeah.
doesn't go away. That's not how this works.
Oh my God, I wish it did. I wish it did. But I'm okay. Like, I'm
Hmm.
okay with it not going away.
Yeah.
Kind of made me who I am, so I'm cool with it. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, it does not go away when you're older. And yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Like,
Hmm.
there is a point where people are just like, well, just pull yourself together. Like you can, you know,
Hmm.
like like it was cute
Yeah.
when you were a kid, and now that you're an adult, like it's a character flaw. It's like
Yeah. I've definitely
I
been
don't
told
buy
to just try to focus more. And I'm like,
right.
that's not
Oh,
helpful.
oh, really? Try to focus more, huh? You know what? Thanks so much for bringing that up because I like didn't think of that myself.
Yeah.
I didn't think of trying to focus more, but now that you
Hmm.
say it, I'm
Yeah.
all about trying to focus more. Yeah, I mean, I think that is a problem. Like when you are older, they don't give you that slack that they would give
Hmm.
a younger person. It's just like try to focus. You should focus more, or you
Hmm.
should just pull it together.
Uh-huh.
Or you're like, well, I
Yeah.
don't know how all of a sudden like that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Um, but
So
yeah,
I have like two more major questions to cover.
sure, let's
So
go with
the
your major
first one,
question.
what part of ADHD do you think needs to be addressed more and why? You've kind of mentioned a few things, but is there any specific like symptom you've had or a thing in general that you think people should address more when they
Oh,
think about it?
100% focus on women, like
Mm-hmm.
100%. Like we know, I guess across the board, and women in healthcare have been ignored,
Yeah.
but across the board, like I think we've probably done overly well medicating young boys
Mm-hmm.
and calling it ADHD. And I think that there is so much
Mm-hmm.
about women with ADHD that is just not known and explored. Like we shouldn't
Yeah.
have to be like, I was on the internet the other day and I ran into this TikToker who says she has it and we have the same thing. And I didn't know that was like
Uh-huh.
we shouldn't
Yeah.
be like having to like research it so much
Yeah.
on our own. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's the one thing about it. ADHD is like we've ignored women in healthcare for
Yes.
so long,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in mental health care.
Yes.
And there is no reason that should be going on. Um,
Yeah. I did a lot of research on women in ADHD for my AP seminar thing
yeah,
and the gender differences. And like, it's interesting because there are a few symptom differences, obviously, but like the rate, especially for autism, actually, it's like a 4-to-1 ratio of boys to girls. And I'm
I
like,
mean,
that's really bad.
well, and you have to ask the question like, is it the 4-to-1 ratio there because that it does affect, you know, because
Yeah.
autism affects boys more than girls, or is it because you're just really not, you don't know what
Uh-huh.
you're looking for?
Yeah.
Um, and maybe it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And especially young women have been ignored, and things, and it's things like, well, you're just not living up to your potential, or you need to pull
Uh-huh.
your stuff together. That even doctors will be like,
Yeah.
you know, dismissing certain things as like,
Yeah. For me,
she's
there
just
was
avoidance.
definitely a few things because the gifted part didn't help trying to diagnose something else that like is a learning disability basically,
Right.
because I had good grades. So that was kind of a major point during the thing was kind of, well, you have good grades. And I'm like, yeah, and what
Mhm.
else?
Right. Yeah, like I went to Xavier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I went to a really hard school, so I could get through that. Clearly there's not a problem there, right?
Yeah.
Um, you're just like a quirky,
Uh-huh.
artsy individual. Well, maybe you should listen more.
Uh-huh.
Maybe people should listen more
Yeah.
to, especially young women who
Uh-huh.
think that there's an issue or have a problem. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I learned when I was researching it is basically a lot of the problem is just part of it is masking because a lot of women mask their symptoms a lot more trying to fit in with their peers. But the other part is kind of boys tend to be more disruptive when they have it. And since
Hmm.
teachers right now are usually the ones who have to recommend the diagnosis just because they're the ones around the kids, if you're not being disruptive, they don't really think about it. So,
Hmm. It's interesting you bring up the whole masking thing because like
mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that I've masked anything, but at the
Uh-huh.
same time, like I now looking at it, like that's been the way that I've been coping, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I won't, that's like a coping mechanism to get
Uh-huh.
by in life. Whereas,
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as masking, but maybe perhaps that it has been,
That's
things like that.
especially for like social situations
Oh,
mostly because
100%.
it's way harder to like learn social cues still.
I'm the worst, by the way, I'm the worst at that. I'm so bad. I'm so bad that like I thought I'm just I'm terrible at that. I mean, I
Mhm.
get it. Like I can tell if
Yeah.
someone doesn't want to talk to me or whatever.
Yeah.
But like I in high school, I was so I could not read someone to say if someone told me something, I would be like, "Oh, okay. Great." Like I would never think that there's an ulterior motive or anything like that. I'm still a little
Yeah.
bit like that. Like I take everyone at face value.
Uh-huh.
So if you're gonna lie to me, hey everyone, if you're gonna lie to me because I'm gonna believe you. Chances are.
Yeah, just reading social cues sometimes it's a little bit difficult for us. I feel like it's not too bad, but like especially when should I talk? When do I stop talking? It's
Well,
kind
I
of
think that's
yeah.
also, that's also like anxiety, right? That's
Yeah.
like anxiety and nervousness. Um, to have silence is very anxiety causing for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people. And so continuing to talk is a way to mask that anxiety.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think there's quite a few teachers in my past who have been like, who wanted me to stop talking.
Yeah. And then the final question is what can friends or family members do to provide support for people like you?
Um, well, I mean, I don't know that it's just people like me. I mean, I think it's just people. Like,
Uh-huh.
I think you really need to approach everyone with kindness. I
Uh-huh.
really do. I think, from what I was talking about earlier, when you are talking about women with ADHD, you have to talk and acknowledge the abuse that we've gotten over the
Mm-hmm.
years. It is abusive, um, the things that have been said to us.
Mm-hmm.
They are abusive things,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and maybe approaching with kindness, and and I'm sure that no one wanted to be abusive. They wanted to be helpful, but sometimes
Mm-hmm.
your comments aren't helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're, well, now you need to focus. Isn't helpful,
Yeah.
right? Like we get it. I know I need to focus. That's not a question here.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Don't worry. Um, and eh, and I have like I know there's people who I just kind of don't want around because I know that they're going to, not treat my, I don't want to say quirks, but the,
Uh-huh.
the parts that make me me,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to treat that with kindness. And if you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to treat with that with kindness, I don't need that. I don't need that around. I got enough. Right?
Uh-huh.
I got enough to deal with. So I think that, approaching with kindness and uh and asking for forgiveness. If you have been one of those people, ask for forgiveness. Say, you know what, I've said to you many times that you have not lived up to your potential, and I just want to apologize because that's
Mm-hmm.
gotta really put a lot of stress on you and
Mm-hmm.
really make you second guess about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that asking for forgiveness goes a long way,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Um, it's difficult for me now as a parent to like say that. I'm not saying that my parents treated me like that at all. I'm just saying like, you do what you can as a parent, you do the best you can as a parent, and
Yes.
it's not always right. Like,
Uh-huh.
admittedly, you don't always do the right thing. But, to approach, if there's parents listening to this and they have said those things to their kids, to approach them with kindness and with an apology goes a long way,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
Have you ever had like a teacher or anybody apologize for saying
Not
like
really.
interesting?
I don't think it's ever really come up, honestly, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's I think I'm probably gonna be a little bit more like conscious of it too.
Uh-huh.
You know, because I'd like to be treated a certain way. So I think I'm going to
Yes.
probably be a little bit more conscious of it when
Uh-huh.
it comes up in my life too. You do what you can as a parent. Sometimes you win,
Uh-huh.
sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do the right thing, sometimes you don't, and you got to
Mm-hmm.
just move on. And I get it. Um, but approaching with kindness, I think, and
Uh-huh.
understanding.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to cause people. You know, I don't want to like constantly talk. And I have like literally been in meetings where I'm like, at the risk of being the only one here talking, I'm going to say this point. Like I've said that before
Mm-hmm.
because I know like I know that I have a lot to say,
Yes.
which is good and bad. Sometimes people don't. Sometimes no one else wants to talk, so it's good that you do. You know.
Yeah.
Did you
Well,
have any other
those were the
questions?
main
Those were your main
questions.
questions.
So if there's anything else you want to talk about, we can
I
talk
don't
about
know.
that. But it's already been a pretty long interview.
Oh my
So
God. That's, why I talk a lot. That's why. But like, with that said, like I went into broadcasting,
yes.
right? Because I talk a lot. And then
Uh-huh.
I do communications
Uh-huh.
or different things because I talk a lot. And I went into I was a TV producer because I talk.
Yeah.
So you use your flaws and make them strengths.
Yes.